All right, welcome, Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan, here with the epitome of style and grace, also a sex bot, Keith. What's up, buddy?
You didn't add rake in there, which I am, of course, as well.
What's a rake? I don't know what that is.
Celia's brother in the book is described as a rake, someone that just like rakes in girls. That's a sick term to be described as.
Okay.
You didn't agree with that one. You're like, I'm not adding that to the list.
Well, not for me. I'm a one-woman guy, Keith, all right?
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm a pickaxe or something.
You're a hoe,
I don't know.
right?
Yeah, maybe.
Same thing, right?
Going one line.
Yeah, but it's a single. Yeah, it's not a multiple one.
Yeah. Okay, well, here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing Taylor Jenkins Reid's hit novel, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us about any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. So The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is pretty much a PSA for MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and while at the same time being kind of like a blueprint for how to cover up a murder, correct?
That's I would say the prime part of the story is.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the hook. That's what it's all about. Okay, as long as we're on the same page. Let's get into some stock up, stock down. Seven Husbands, Evelyn Hugo. What do you got?
First stock up, being an actor. Yeah, so obviously there's tons of beneficial things about being an actor. I mean, the money, notoriety, it's a cool profession. It's not a job. It's just like, go show up and you're being an actor. But the one thing that I've heard about actors in general is they have kind of this massive insecurity issue with, they have to always audition for their roles. They kind of always needed that attention. But not Evelyn Hugo.
No.
At multiple points in the book, she looks at the mirror and she's like, God damn, I'm hot. Like, God damn, I look good. And I'm like, really, huh? Must be really nice. So, like, the one thing I feel like most people have, and which probably makes it a little bit hard for people to relate to Evelyn, is that insecurity where she just doesn't have any of it. Just zero.
Yeah. Maybe stock up just irrational confidence.
If she was born in today's day and age, she'd just be an Instagram model, right? Those people that are, like, doing selfies and shit all day. Like, that's the only people that have that type of confidence, right?
Maybe, but she had drive. Like, she wanted to do this since she was a kid. She had the ability to, like, take the risks needed for this. I mean, she even says in the book, like, she doesn't regret anything. And then a lot of the early stuff is, her marrying her first husband just basically to get her foot in the door, like to get out to LA. That was pretty much it. Like, he was a gaffer or something like that. He was a gaffer's boy and was able to get out to LA and like somehow sneak into the movie industry. Granted, it was like through waitressing or whatnot. So she has some gumption. I don't want to.
No, I like Evelyn a lot. It was just that, like, the one negative I feel like that actors typically have is the insecurity part, and she just didn't have any of it. So what's the negative of being an actor at that point?
Yeah, for sure. Like the Tom Cruise, like, I'm 5'4", so like have to wear wedges and join Scientology to feel like I'm a superstar. I've heard Tom Cruise is super weird in person. It's almost like he's trying to act like a human. You'd be like, what would a human do in this situation? It's like, oh, high five. And he like goes up like Zuckerberg vibes.
I think to be that successful at any profession, you have to be really weird. You can't be a normal human because like you're kind of like a caged animal a little bit. Everyone's always looking at you and fucks up with your mind.
I think that's fair. Especially in today's day and age, just the spotlight is huge. I actually saw a video recently it was like on Reddit, of Shakira, and like she was on a tour in Japan, and someone gave her or was showing her a flip phone that had a camera function and a video function. Obviously this is a really long time ago, and she was blown away by it, obviously, like we all were. But the first thing she said is, oh, hopefully the paparazzi don't get their hands on any of these things. But she didn't realize that the paparazzi was going to become every single person.
Yeah, right.
My buddy was recently traveling and was in Singapore, and I guess there was like a K-pop star that was in the terminal. He sent a video of, it was, a meta video of a video kind of thing of people, every single person in that airport just running to this terminal gate, all like holding their phones as high as they could in the air, like hoping to get a shot. I was like, wow, that is fucking wild.
I feel like there should be a list of like 3 celebrities, that's it, that you're allowed to bother and say, I need a photo. That's it. Like, you can't have more than that. Otherwise, then you're just You know what I mean? You're like, hey, sorry to bother you. You're on my list, actually. And you like show it to them. It's like in like some concrete.
Yeah, it's like a passport, like your government
Yeah.
issue. Every year you're allowed to update it. Okay, well, we got a little off the rails, but I enjoyed that. Stock up for me is being drop dead gorgeous. So
similar to mine.
Similar mindset, so we can go through it pretty quickly. And I don't want to take anything once again away from Evelyn Hugo. You know, she definitely put the effort in. But a lot of the early success and even some of the later success was just based on the fact that she was like so hot. So hot. I appreciate her talents, and obviously she became a good actress. That takes a lot of skill, and nothing is just made off of looks. But any study you look at, whether it be for acting or for a shitty office job, if you're better looking, you get the job. So thank God there's plastic surgery, because I'll need some. So stock up.
It's coming from the guy that looks like Johnny Depp. Must be nice.
Slow down. Stop.
Nice.
Okay, no, keep going. I got a face for radio. That was my stuck up. Good on you, Evelyn Hugo. What do you have next?
Yeah, I saved a little bit darker one for the second one, just in case anyone is listening, and we can get past this. But my second stock up is Forrest Gump's kid. Stock up. Everyone sees, those memes out there of Forrest Gump, and it's like, had sex once, has a kid, potentially gets AIDS. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay. But apparently the director, by the way, has never confirmed that she had AIDS.
What?
Yeah, he said it was like an immune disease, but we don't know what it is. But I don't know.
Weird.
She's doing a lot of drugs. This probably could be anything. Well, Evelyn, she has sex once, ruins her relationship with Celia because of it. And unlike Forrest Gump's kid, who gets a lot of shit, and Forrest gets a lot of shit, the kid isn't smart because he was never born. tough break, because he got aborted. But
wait, what are you talking about?
She has sex with the one-night stand guy in Vegas, gets pregnant, and then aborts the baby. Too dark? No?
Right. No, I got that.
So anyways, Forrest Gump's kid, stock up.
Once again, in typical fashion, I'm not following the logic, but I'm glad that you're passionate about it.
I'm saying, everyone talks about a Forrest Gump's kid. It's like the worst luck, right? You have sex once, you have a kid. Really, the worst luck is Evelyn. She ruined a relationship and then never even had a kid over it.
Yeah, okay. Sure. I got you.
Am I crazy?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, fair enough.
I'm going to keep with the same theme as I was going with and stock up brief nudity. Back in the day, I feel like the brief nudity stock is down because back in the day, meaning when you're a 12 to 14-year-old boy, you see brief nudity like coming up on HBO and you're like, oh my God, I got to see when this is going to happen. You're watching Species and you're like, I know it's coming up at some point. But now TV's a little more, at least in America, is a little more lax with that stuff. So it was like every episode of Game of Thrones was brief nudity. Anytime you're watching HBO, brief nudity. It's like, okay, whatever. But brief nudity in the book skyrockets Evelyn's career after Bout d'un temps. And so she shows not even full breast, which I asked my girlfriend. I was like, because we were listening to this together in the car on our road trip. And I asked her, I was like, they said they didn't show full breast. So, like, what did they show, though? She thought it stopped at the nipple. She was saying, oh, so there was no nipple. It stopped right above the nipple. And I was thinking it stopped below the nipple, but above the bottom of the breast.
Okay.
So it was really the nipple. Was it or was it not?
Well, how was it panning?
It was panning down. Obviously, if it panned side to side, you'd see one breast. No,
it could be panning from her head down or from her legs down. Oh, legs up, rather.
Oh, well, legs down is a different kind of nudity. Yeah. I'm under the impression it was panning head down. So are you on, there was no nipple in Bout d'un temps? Or was there nipple in
I think it was one of those ones where it was like artistically shot, where if you paused it, which some of us may or may have done when we were younger in certain movies, at a certain scene you could see it, but otherwise you couldn't see it. It was like a did I see that or not kind of glimpse.
I think it was very clear that it was not a full breast, so it wasn't shown. So let's say it's Caroline's right, and it stopped above the nipple. That's really good to have that elevate your career and really get you all of the gigs, considering you really didn't show much that you wouldn't see from wearing a low-cut dress or something along that lines. And considering Evelyn's, as she says, her biggest asset, pun intended, is her breasts, I think that's probably a win. And then I was wondering, like, hey, have there been other actresses? I was just doing some research. So I was saying, have there been other actresses who showing nudity kind of started their career? And I got a few. We got Natasha Henstridge, I think it's Henstridge, from Species movie. That was the first movie she was in. She showed her breasts and continued to get jobs, including she's the wife in Whole Nine Yards. A very good movie, if you ask me. We got Kathleen Turner in Body Heat. Haven't seen it, but you'd know Kathleen Turner. That was her first role. She eventually, like 2 years later, turned it into Romancing the Stone, which was like a big hit, and then continued to have a career. And most importantly, we have Charlize Theron, who her first movie, not considering like Children of the Corn 3, which she had an appearance in, was 2 Days in the Valley, which supposedly, I haven't seen this, but supposedly she also goes nude in that, and we all know her career has been phenomenal. All these women are great actresses. Natasha Henstridge, not so much, but they showed some parts of their body, and their careers took off from there, so good for them. Stock up to all of you.
All right. I like that rundown. That was well-researced.
Thank you.
That.
Yeah, I did. Now I gotta go scrape the plaster off the walls. Okay, what else do you have for stock up?
That was it for stock up.
I had beards, which not like hipster IPA kind. The beards here we're talking about are from Wikipedia, describing a person who is used knowingly or unknowingly as a date, romantic partner, boyfriend or girlfriend, or spouse, either to conceal infidelity or to conceal one's sexual orientation. And that's what we're talking about here, because the happiest time of this book is when there's big beard energy. Not only is Evelyn, does she have a beard in Harry? I was like, Hank? Why did I keep on to say Hank? Yeah, so she had Harry, Celia had John, and they were both each other's beards. Is there a better situation where two gay couples are like dating each other but then married, quote unquote, to the straight side or whatever, so that the media doesn't know? I mean, that whole media thing is annoying on its own. We'll talk about that later. But, it's a great situation for them. They can go out with their loved ones like, oh, this is my parents' best friend. And worst case, people are like, maybe they're swingers. Maybe they're swinging. But no one's thinking that they're just completely, with the other partner's wife or whatnot. So stock up to beards because... Yeah. Heck yeah. And I also had to explain what a beard was to my girlfriend, and that was really fun in the car because she had no idea.
It was cool just to have like a best friends group,
Oh, 100%. No, it's like a great group of friends. They can like do double dates all the time. And like, like you said, they're all good friends with each other. Plus for me, I'm personally thinking about the sports implications. So I'm like, wow, you guys want to go play doubles tennis? Like you're good to go. You want to play some spike ball? You're good to go. Like anything.
Well, you also have a pro athlete. So I mean, that's gonna be a little tough.
Yeah.
It's gonna be very one-sided.
That's fair. It also seemed like Celia was more sporty spice than Evelyn, so it definitely would have been a weird teams. Like, how would they figure out the team situation? But even, you want to play cards or you want to play a board game, you got 4 people.
No, it is. It's great.
Stock up beards, and especially if you're in a situation where there's 2 of you. What do you have for stock down?
Stock down, tough choices. Monique, at the beginning of the book, has to choose the really tough choice. Her job at the magazine, where she's the lowest on the totem pole, or $12 million book deal in the near future. She's like, I don't know. I have to determine this. And I'm like, what? At the beginning of the book, I was like almost turned off. I was like, what are we doing here, Monique? Mm-hmm. Like, the magazine industry is dying. The blog industry is skyrocketing, aka buddybookclub.com. But we're going to stick it out at the bottom of the totem pole as at a magazine when what's going to help your resume is taking this book deal and then publicizing to everyone, hey, I have a huge book deal coming out with this. Do you want me as a writer on your staff? Yeah, that's going to be huge publicity for us. Why would we not want you? Take the $12 million, and it's not even a decision. Like, it's the easiest choice of all time. At one point, she was like, I don't know if I'm going to take it. I was like, what? What are you doing? But
yeah,
it worked out for the best.
Couldn't agree with you more. It was in my hate section, was just that whole idea of her not wanting to take that money or take the biography or whatever, because it didn't make much sense. I'm glad she figured out that she could kind of parlay that into getting a better role at her current company, which then if she left, she could go and improve from there. But still, it should have never been a question. It should have been like, yes, I'm taking this book deal, and then I'll figure out everything else.
Right.
Because
exactly.
This is the biggest exclusive in the world, you know, besides like probably like Kim Jong-un. This is what you're going for. So the fact that it's sitting in her lap and she has to think about it because she's like a staff writer at some magazine, I think it's supposed to be like Vogue, right?
Yeah.
Either way, yeah, big mistake. It was a part of the book that I did not really get. It seemed like they were kind of forcing this like character development.
Right, yeah.
Okay, my first stock down is the media. I was talking about this a little bit earlier. A couple levels here. One, on a basic top level, the media in this book is not very astute whatsoever. I mean, and I'm not in with outing people or that whole idea, but that's a concern in this book, is like them getting outed. And the media somehow cannot figure this out. All of these speeches that they have at the Oscars are very blatant towards a woman. They've been best friends throughout all of these years. There's no paparazzi like sitting outside Evelyn's house realizing that Harry's never there. Every night, John and Celia come over, and then Harry and John leave. No one's going the extra miles. No one's doing investigative journalism. It took 60 years for this to come out, and Evelyn had to pretty much tell you. Granted, I think the part of the book, you know, that's kind of a big part of the book, is her having to cover it up and feeling the need to do that. So additionally, stock down for the media, because they're putting people in this position where they have to try to cover it up. They can't just live their lives. So media's terrible. Paparazzi's terrible. And even they say in the book, like, nothing you read in the newspaper is real. It's just like, you know, how people want to frame it and whatnot. It's like stats.
We went over this in the Mitch Rapp book, but obviously the media is the worst. I mean, actually, I've probably done stock down media for like 10 different books, but I don't think that the media's goal would be to out anyone. I mean, I don't know historically if they've ever done that. They must have at some point.
What?
Have they?
What? I'm sure they have.
I mean, we weren't around. I feel like when they were like, this was like,
that's the story. You know what I mean? Even when they're saying like, oh, Elton John's out.
But that was him announcing it, right?
Yeah, but even the stories like, oh, is this person gay? Is that person gay? Like, people care about that stuff. Even now, you'll see it's like, oh, is this actor gay or whatever? It's like, you have
I guess that's
no
true.
idea.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. I just put on my list on Netflix, Tim Dillon has a new special, and the guy's hilarious. I think he's
good.
So good. And someone was like, oh, he's gay. And I was like, Good. Okay. Like, yeah. So it had literally no implication to me whatsoever.
I mean,
so
obviously.
when like the media comes and like outs people like that, or even just like that's part of a subject line, it's like, who fucking cares? Like, the fact that people click on that, shameful. Well, I'll just go to my next stop down, I guess, which is America. Sorry, Keith. America, stop down. Let people live their lives, for Christ's sake. I mean, this whole book, it really puts a lot of stuff into perspective that you don't think about. And I recently watched Imitation Game. Have you seen that movie with Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yeah, I didn't think that was that good. It seems kind of boring.
You didn't care for it? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
It could have been, they could have made that much more interesting, but U571 did a better job of it. I mean, what?
Good God, what's that on Rotten Tomatoes? You should look that up for your...
That movie is great.
It's phenomenal. Okay, we'll get back to America and how shitty it is. So I was talking about the Alan Turing thing in Imitation Game, because, you know, at the end of that, it's like he gets chemically castrated. You know, this is a guy who literally changed the tides of the war. And he's getting chemically castrated. Granted, that's not America. I understand that. But in this book, Celia and Evelyn are, you know, they're scared they're going to get put into an asylum. Like, these are very successful people who are in the spotlight. And they're concerned that they're going to get thrown into an asylum for being gay, bi. Then, like, later when they have the Connor, it's like, oh, Connor could get taken from us. And it's, like, already frustrating enough if it wasn't the fact that it, like, a lot of the stuff still goes on today. Like, you know, they just recently changed it so, like, gay people can adopt kids and stuff like that. It's like, are you kidding me? So you're saying, like, there's a starving kid somewhere and in a terrible situation, but, like, no, you can't go to this happy gay household. What are you talking about? And, like, that shit still goes on. And so, America, get your shit together. Stock down.
I mean, Hollywood, too, is, like, the most liberal part of our country, too. So the fact that this was happening back then is, and I'm sure Hollywood probably has, percentage-wise, some of the highest gay percentage numbers, right?
Yeah, I thought it was in the logging industry.
Well, I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm just saying.
No, I have no idea.
You'd think,
but
there'd be more allies there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And a lot of it was like a situation where people knew. It was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that person's gay, but like it wasn't something that you'd like go and tell the media or something like that. What do you have for stock down?
All right, this one's going to be a long one. Pretending, aka acting, stock down.
Well, hold on. Say that again. Pretending,
aka what acting is.
Okay, got you.
Stock down. Celia is the absolute worst character in the book. The absolute worst. So, I don't know much about feminism, but if you just imagine everything that Celia does as being, and she's a man, she'd be the biggest villain, biggest anti-feminist in the books. It'd be like the worst person ever. Let's picture this. They get together, and Celia's biggest complaint is like, oh, we need to come out. We need to, like, tell everyone. I don't want to live a lie anymore.
Yeah. Good
so
point.
Evelyn's like, all right, I'm going to game up. I'm going to help us both out. I'll get the media off our back. I'm going to go pretend to basically hook up with this dude in Vegas.
Not pretend. They
AKA
did.
Act. Well, they did. Whatever. It was
Yeah.
an act. It's not real. She's not actually loving this guy. She's just doing it.
Yeah. It wasn't. She says it in the book. She says it wasn't. I didn't make love to him.
Yeah.
I had sex with him.
Exactly. It's literally just to save both of them. That's all she's doing. They have the Forrest Gump baby. And then Celia's like, you broke my trust. You did this. She proceeds to call her a whore, which is like, okay, it's a bit aggressive. And fine. They break up. Celia has her own opinion. That's fine. So yeah, obviously Celia comes out and tells everyone that she's gay, right? She tells the world that. No, she doesn't. She doesn't do shit because she never was going to do it. She was just making that shit up. She just wanted to control her this whole time and basically have power over her.
Okay.
She doesn't say shit, right? Celia's all talk. So they get back together. Yeah, I'm upset with Celia still. They get back together. Celia basically has already been insinuating for multiple times that the only reason Evelyn is an actress is because she's hot. She doesn't really bring anything else to the table. She's not a great actress. She's just hot. Celia passes up a role, quote unquote, and is like, here, Evelyn, you have this. And you need to show people you're still good looking. That's why she gives her the role. And she, as a man, imagine being like, hey, you need to take this role because you need to show how good looking you are.
Did she pass up
and I'm
the
giving
role,
it to
or
you.
did she say?
Yeah, she passes up and gives it to her. She's like, I'm going to give this to you.
Yeah.
Like the condescending, like, you can have nice scraps.
Or the worst, when you're like playing a sports game and it's like, I think that was out, and someone's like, I'll give it to you. It's like,
yeah,
yo, what?
Yeah, so she controls her, obviously. It's like, you're going to take this role. And then they go and shoot a scene, an acting scene that's very, very pro-woman, very empowering, very pro-sex. And Celia gets upset about it. The movie that she got her, she gets upset because she couldn't control and tell her what to do. And she said not to even do the scene, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's called acting. It's called, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And then the only time that Celia gets back together with her, won't return any of her calls, won't return any of her letters, nothing. The only time is when she starts dying. She's like, yeah, now I need someone to take care of me. So now I'll respond to your letters. Celia is the worst. The absolute worst.
So she's Jenny from Forrest Gump.
Tell me I'm wrong.
She's Jenny from Forrest Gump.
That's right. Good point. Yeah, she is Jenny from Forrest Gump. The absolute worst. Does that make sense? Can you dispute those, please? I thought I was going crazy.
I can follow your logic, but I'm gonna have to go on record and tell you that I don't really agree with you.
Don't use these muddled words.
I'm not.
You just say you don't agree.
I don't agree.
And tell me why.
I don't agree.
Okay, thank you.
When it came to dating the rock star guy or whatever, getting married to him, Evelyn should have been clearer that she intended to have sex with him. I mean, if I was reading between the lines, I read, like, she's going to have sex with this guy. Like, that was clear to me, and maybe Celia just didn't want to believe it. But I think that has to be said. You have to communicate that. Granted, and Celia kind of says this later in life. She says, I wasn't a perfect person when we were doing that stuff anyways. Like, it's not all your fault. Because Celia recognized that Evelyn was trying to do something for them. And like your point, which I actually think is the one good one you had, which was that Celia doesn't immediately come out after that, or when she's dating these other women, she's not like, yeah, I'm a lesbian. You weren't prepared to put your money where your mouth was. Granted.
And she's also like, oh, I don't want to see you with any other men. I can't even look at pictures of you. So even if they didn't sleep together, she was like, I can't even look at this because I can't have you even looking at someone. It's like, you're just a super controlling, manipulative person. That's all you are. Like, that's what she is. But she guises it in this fighting the good fight, and you're not. It's like, no, you're not. You're just lying.
Yeah. Well, also the her not coming out part, it's one of those things where it's up to that person, and I know this is fictional, but it's up to that person to like even care about that. Why should you have to tell anyone else what your sexual orientation is? I don't go around telling people I'm straight. I mean, maybe by the clothes I wear, aka high Nike socks and Birkenstocks.
Celia is forcing Evelyn to do that. She's like, no, you have to do this.
I get it.
Which is just as bad.
I wasn't a huge fan of Celia myself, and I appreciate that she kind of like apologized for that. But it is interesting that she only comes back at the end when she's like, shit, I'm really sick. Like, now I got to like figure this one out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stick with you. But tying into this, one of my stock downs is the idea of asking for forgiveness and not permission. Because for me, when someone told me this at a younger age, I said, you know what, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard. If you got your, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to, you're hanging out with your buddies when you're a teenager, it's like, I'm supposed to be home by 6. Let me call my mom and ask her if I can stay till 7. No, you show up at 7 and you say, my bad, I lost track of time, whatever the case is. Because if you call her at 6, she's going to say, no, you got to come home. Always ask for forgiveness, not permission, but stock down because it screws Evelyn over in this book when she does the sex scene with Dawn that you were talking about, and she doesn't tell Celia until after it's done, and she's like, whatever, like after it's done, I'll go home, I'll get her some flowers, and I'll tell her that, I'll convince her that's a good idea. And Celia's like, absolutely not. No way. If you did it, I'd never be able to look at you the same. Our relationship would be over. And she's like, well, shit, it's already in the can. So, and that literally ends their relationship for 15 years or whatever the case is. So maybe in some cases, ask for permission.
If Celia was a pedestrian, then I get it a little bit more, but she's in other movies. Couldn't Evelyn just be like, you can't kiss a person on screen or I'm going to be pissed at you? It's like, what? Like, that's what your job is.
Yeah, it seemed a total overreaction. One, obviously there wasn't any like actual sex going on. It's a movie. You know what I mean? And then two, the logic behind why to do it, and I think Max made a good argument, makes a lot of sense. The idea that, he's kind of phrased it as like sex for men is in the world is like the idea is men have sex for pleasure and women have sex for connection or intimacy or whatever the case is. But why can't, lots of women have sex for pleasure and not for intimacy. You know what I mean? So,
like I said, it was super empowering.
Yeah.
If anything, it was like there's the most feminist thing you could do. And she was like, no, I'm controlling. Like I said, if it was a guy saying this exact same thing, people would be like, wow, that guy Cecil, that guy was the fucking worst in this book. He's the clear enemy number one. But people are like, oh, I guess it's Celia, so it's fine.
I will also tell you, just FYI, that the argument of like, if you switched out the girl with the guy thing won't go over well if we ever get very big in this industry. So
I'm just saying, like, what do you mean? Why is that bad?
Well, because there's so many other factors, societal factors and whatnot, and also, it's like, oh, if this was like we're treated badly because we're men because they look bad at us like this, but these women get away with everything.
All right,
like
do you think your partner, regardless of what gender, I'm just treating them equally. Like I don't think you should treat them different because they're in a gay relationship.
Okay,
who cares?
Okay.
Do you think your partner should be controlling of you? Do you think they should manipulate you into doing things you don't want, or coming out and hurting your career, or telling you what jobs to take and telling you you're a whore and you're bad at acting, you've never been good at acting, you're only good for your looks? Those are all things she does. Like, that's just clear. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a guy.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair.
All right. Yeah, I got angry at it. I mean, I just thought it was ridiculous,
Well, what else do you ever stock down?
I ride with my girl Evelyn all day, son.
What else do you ever stock down?
I just had one last one. Oatmeal, stock down. I mean, this is really what made me hate Celia. Evelyn and Harry are kind of living the couple's life with their new kid, Connor. And every morning, it seems like they have a tradition. They wake up, they make breakfast, bacon and eggs. They have kind of this whole kind of family dynamic going. And obviously Celia, because she's controlling and selfish, comes in and is like, no, you can't have this. And she's like, you're eating oatmeal today. And that's her point to prove that she can be that person that provides.
Yeah.
We talking about oatmeal?
Yeah.
We ain't talking about some French toast? We ain't talking about some pancakes? Maybe a cereal bar? Like, what are we doing here? And she's like, here's some fucking raisins. I was like, gross. What the fuck is this?
As someone that likes to cook and likes to provide for my loved ones,
Celia is oatmeal. That's who she is. She's oatmeal.
If someone's coming in, say that I go into someone's house or whatever the case is, and they're like, hey, normally we have oatmeal for breakfast. I was staying over for the weekend. I would say, hey, let me cook them up some bacon and eggs with some buttered toast. Take it up the next level. But Celia's coming into a situation where they are having bacon and eggs with buttered toast. So now, like you said, you gotta go next level. We're talking French toast. We're talking a Dutch baby. Some mix of pancakes, some chocolate chips, some blueberries, some, maybe some muddled apples to put on top or something. But instead she goes backwards and she's like, yeah, all right, I'll make breakfast this morning, and gives them gruel. Like, these are millionaires and you're giving them gruel.
I also imagine oatmeal in like the 70s is gross. I just think that's probably the worst thing
ever. Has
oatmeal
ever changed since
I mean, it's still not great, but I'm just imagining but it's probably just plain oats, and they're like not finely cut. I don't know. I'm just imagining she hands her like a stock of wheat and she's like, eat this shit. Like, here's some raisins.
Oh, she's like, you get the chaff too. The chaff's where all the fiber is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I grew up on grape nuts, so if someone gave me Honey Nut Cheerios, I would have done anything for it. My last stock down was The Sanctity of Marriage, and this is quick. I mean, there was no sanctity of marriage. She'd be married one guy for, just to get in the industry, and then met Don and married him. Obviously, get out of the relationship with Don. I get that part and why you left him for Celia. It seemed like the only real sanctity of the marriage was Harry. Granted, he was holding it together, and obviously Celia. But even then, I think that kind of helps my point, is marriage. I'm talking about marriage by the government, when the government's keeping track of you. Because the most fulfilling marriage she had was when she married Celia, although it was just the two of them sitting together in a room saying, we're married. I marry you, you marry me. Perfect. That's all you got to say. Why has it got to be anything else? And I don't think they exchanged diamond rings. Fuck De Beers. That gets us out of stock down. Thanks for playing. Do you have a favorite scene?
I liked it when everyone was like happy-go-lucky. You already mentioned it, like the two couples together. I was like, this isn't going to last, but this is nice. That was just a cool part of the book. But the best scene was probably my girl Evelyn, ride or die. Harry drunk drives, kills someone, and she's like, all right, time to put the gloves on. Let's get to work.
Yeah.
She's like she's from Pulp Fiction, the fixer guy there.
The wolf?
Yeah. She just went to work, and I was like, I got to respect this. It was a dark scene, but I appreciated it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because my note for this was really, it's not really a scene book in my opinion. There's not scenes unless you're into the aforementioned murder cover-up. And I agree that part of the book where everything's like happy-go-lucky was a really nice break. There was so much stuff that was going on before that in an entertainment factor, but also somewhat stressful and just a lot of moving parts that for them to all kind of exhale and be able to spend that time together, it made me feel good as a reader/listener. I was like, oh, great. But obviously that's not going to be the end of the book, because it actually wouldn't be a very good book if it ended there. So I guess I'll probably go with the reveal of the murder cover-up. Obviously where everything ties together, and you see like part of the reason why Evelyn brought Monique into this. And considering that without that part of the book, I don't think any of the Monique stuff really makes sense, instead of being like an expository way to connect all the marriages without it just being like a story. It almost gave it like the Princess Bride vibe, where if the Princess Bride was just a movie, then it'd be like, oh, okay, this is a fun little fairy tale-ish thing. But the fact that it's like grandfather reading it to the grandson when he's sick, it like makes it even more fairy tale vibe.
I was thinking Titanic, the old lady. That's the beginning of Titanic.
Yeah. If she's like slept with a few other people, and then
what's the Seinfeld line? She's just a bit of a tramp, huh? Frankly, a liar. Something like that. One thing I will say about that is I really liked how it wrapped together. I wish they didn't foreshadow it, because I completely forgot what she was doing there. Like, that was just completely out of my mind.
Yeah.
And then Monique says at one point, right before the reveal, little did I know I would come to hate Evelyn Hugo just in a few days. And I was like, oh. And then I started like waiting for it. And right when that car accident happened, I was like, oh, so her dad's that was in the car.
Oh, good for you.
It was more just I was looking for it, because I need to find the twist here.
Yeah. What do you got for favorite character?
I mean, I already said it. I liked old Evelyn. She did not.
DGAF Evelyn?
DGAF.
DGAF. Doesn't give a fuck Evelyn?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I just appreciated that. She was just like, I'm not going to apologize for shit. Just not fucking around at all. I really also liked the business analogy she used. I had this in my love. But Monique comes and Evelyn's like, yeah, take this book. It's $12 million. And she's like, well, I don't want to mess up Vivant or whatever, my relationship there. She's like, Yeah, but Vaughn was about to like fuck you over. I asked for you. They said, no, we don't want her on there. So like, you're your own business. You should think about yourself. I love that. That's awesome. And that's how she lived her life, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, it was almost a stock up for me or a stock down for like corporations. Like one, corporations don't give a fuck about you. It's always on Reddit or whatever, you know, if you died suddenly tomorrow, like there'd be an email that goes out and people would say like, my bad, but then they'd fill your position and they'd move on. Like the company doesn't care about you. They're not visiting your loved ones every day or giving you extra money. And Evelyn, you know, like we talked about earlier, she had more than her looks. You know, she had a gumption. She definitely had her head on her shoulders, knew what she wanted and was going to get it, and seemingly has almost no regrets about it, including covering up a murder, which is like kind of fucked up. Yeah. You can regret that. There's nothing wrong with regretting that.
Yeah, that is true. She should be like, I have one or two regrets.
Yeah, it's like you cleared Harry's name so he wasn't known as a guy who murdered someone, which he did. He's a producer. Like, no one cares about what Harry did 50 years later, but maybe, you know, you just ruined this other guy. You turned him into a drunk driver. But now you put Monique in a weird situation where she has to figure out a way to tell her mom that she knows the dad wasn't drunk driving without ruining her mom's memory of her dad. She doesn't really think about the next level down. It's like, okay, yeah, you made Monique feel better about it, but there's more people in Monique's life and her dad's life. Obviously, her dad was a great guy. He touched a lot of people, and all these people think killed himself by drinking and driving, which he didn't do. Harry did. So how can you? It's okay to just be like, yeah, I regret that one. You know, that was I made a tough decision in a stressful situation, and you know what? I shouldn't have. Not be like, that's part of the reason why I did this, but you're a great author. Forgive me or don't forgive me. Whatever. I'm going to kill myself anyways. It's like, all right, cool.
Just as a side one, I did really like, we don't really get to know him, but the starting quarterback for the Giants.
John.
Yeah, not to say it was easy for anyone, but like he probably had the absolute hardest. He's in a football locker room. That's probably like literally in the height of like homophobia. That's probably the hardest thing of all time. And he was nice and chill about everything. I mean, he did have a heart attack later because of it, probably, but...
The first active NFL player to come out happened a year ago. This book takes place in, like, the 60s. So, yeah, it was probably difficult for him. My favorite character, up until the murdering, was probably Harry. His and Evelyn's relationship was just really great, and Evelyn says something really nice. Why do soulmates just have to be romantic soulmates? Like, can't we have other soulmates in this world? And like, you're my soulmate. And Keith, I think you're my soulmate, you know? But,
right back at you,
but Harry, when he's with John, everything was really chill. You know, he's like such a great guy. He's a hard worker. You know, he crushes movies with Evelyn. He believes in her. They have a beautiful family. He's a great dad, great partner. And then John dies and everything goes off the rails. So sorry, Harry. I don't forgive you for murdering. I just don't. Let's jump into some love-hate. Keith, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. What did you love?
Yeah, I think I touched on a few of them already, but the biggest thing I think, once again, in this book, her characters are so real and well-rounded. Everyone has flaws. Everyone has likes and dislikes about certain people. One person could think Celia is completely in the right. I obviously think she's a villain, but, you know, it's to each their own. I mean, some people are right, some people are wrong, which I'm right at. But that was the biggest thing. I think just her writing is so compelling, and I think anytime she comes out with a book, you gotta put it on your radar. You gotta read it because I think she's actually.
She's got like 5 other books, so you're gonna read all those.
Yeah.
I like that you just go yes immediately. I appreciate that. Anyone I've talked to that has told I'm reading it, or like that I just read it, or that I was about to read it, whatever the case is, the only people that have responded are women.
I think it's a book made really for women, which is fine. It's just, you know.
Would you say that Daisy Jones and the Six was?
Our actual reader email, which we can do now if we want, touches on that.
We got no structure. Who cares? Go for it.
Yeah.
You've got mail.
Jane from Cambridge, Mass. Since you guys have read 2 books, if you guys were to recommend Taylor Jenkins Reid book, would you recommend this one or your previous Daisy Jones and the Six book?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I listened to both audiobooks, just to be clear for this. I would probably recommend Daisy Jones and the Six. I just like that format a little better. The story I thought was equally as good, but the format I liked a little better in that. In general, in terms of the setting, like I like the idea of a band anthology kind of behind the curtain thing more than this Hollywood actress behind the curtain thing. It's basically on those factors alone that I would choose Daisy Jones and the Six.
I completely agree with that. I also would say, had I read this book first, that might have switched, just because I think, again, her writing is very unique, and we kind of already had a sense of what it is going into this book, so it's kind of like one of those things. It's like, yeah, I expect that. It's not the same surprise or the appreciation that you would get had we read this first.
One of the things I loved about the book was the structure of it in general. I mean, who needs chapters? This book had no chapters, and normally I'm a big short chapter guy. Give me some meat. I don't even need like the hanger. I hate how the thriller books especially try to leave like a hanger at the end of each chapter. I just like the chapters because I can read 2 chapters and then get up and do something and sit back down and read 2 chapters. That's what I like about it. But this book is just like 7 or 8 stories based on the men she was married to, interposed with the Monique storyline, which, as I said before, I wasn't a huge fan of it for a lot of parts. But the idea of it was like, okay, here's, each one of those men, because that's just how things work. You get married for a time period of your life. Each one of those men kind of represented a time period of her life. So you didn't need the chapters, you just need the men. I mean, I know there's a lot of pushback on the internet, because we'll get into it later on casting. But a lot of people wanted this to be a series, a mini series that was 7 or 8 episodes, like good. 1 episode for each husband kind of thing. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. So here we are. So yeah, but I really like the structure of this one. I thought it was unique and I thought it was fun. Did you love anything else?
I like the term rake, and I did like the Monique twist and her addition, because like what she was dealing with too kind of got resolved, and her personality changed because of Evelyn. It also was almost like, oh, she must be related, because like this, she's almost like a mother figure now. And then it was all of a sudden, it's like, nope.
Well, I also enjoyed how it didn't end in a black and white feeling towards Evelyn. The world is always different shades of gray.
Yeah,
and Monique, when she was deciding to go back to the photo shoot, it was like she said she fucking hates Evelyn, which she still does. But she's like, would I have done this if it wasn't for her? Like, would I have done that if it wasn't for her? Would this have happened if it wasn't for her? Like, no, none of it. So she wasn't super jazzed about it, but she went back and did it. And your opinions change after time. Slowly she kind of starts to be okay with it a little bit, but at the same time, she's not, wow, Evelyn's this beautiful, wonderful person that everyone says she is. Like, no, she's got flaws too. We all do. I didn't have any other loves either, so let's just jump into hate. I guess I'll go because we've kind of been dancing around it, and I've kind of said it, but I didn't love the beginning of the Monique storyline, and I know that the end of it made the whole storyline make sense, but I just didn't really think her character and like the development of her character was super important. It makes sense for this book, so I wouldn't say like get rid of it or anything, but definitely get rid of her husband situation. I did not care for that whatsoever. The coffee table, it's like she couldn't just put her foot down and divorce him. I understand how the things with Evelyn like allowed her to do that, but there were so many other things with her job where she was able to take steps forward, with her dad, that you don't really need the relationship thing, because it didn't matter to me whatsoever. It wasn't like, oh, she was waiting to like start dating this guy at work, but like couldn't do it because, she was hung up by not being able to divorce him. It was like, no, she just like, there was no other storyline. I'm kind of glad there wasn't, because the romantic aspect.
And it was also like an amicable divorce, which was like, oh, okay. It was like, all right, then what's the point of the story?
Yeah. And it was like, hey, I'm trying to create a career in New York. You're trying to create a career in San Francisco,
yeah, like, good
or
luck.
whatever.
All right,
it's like,
that's
yeah, cool. Sorry that we don't love each other enough to either of us decide not to do our careers.
He wasn't Celia to her, which is the whole point, I think.
Yeah. What else did you hate?
The Don part where like Don's like, I'm sober, and I'm like, I gotta apologize. Like, yo, fuck you, buddy. It's one thing like to do stuff that, hey, I was kind of manipulative or mean, like a Celia, right? She was kind of, there's certain things Celia did that I think were bad. You can forgive a lot of those things. Don was like beating her for like 2 years or something like that. Like, hey, Don, you learn at a very young age you're never supposed to hit anyone, let alone a woman. There isn't any some gray area where you're like, you know what, I was kind of an asshole, my bad. You're like a fucking awful person. You should never be forgiven. You can't do that unless like literally He's like, yeah, I had some brain like malfunction, like something wrong with my brain.
Well, alcoholism is something wrong with your brain, but
I didn't care for that. She was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to forgive him. Like, yeah, you shouldn't forgive him. Fuck this dude.
yeah, I do think they handled it in the right way where it was, I'm not going to forgive you. Yes, I'm willing to be friendly with you on the set, but make it clear, we are not friends.
Yeah, I guess I would want it more definitive.
I guess also it brings up a good point, which is like, you shouldn't hold hate in your heart. You know, it's not healthy. If you have someone you hate, let it go. That hate is only affecting you and the people around you. By not being able to kind of remove yourself from that, you're then just still stuck in its vortex. So I think she was able to come to terms with that when he did his thing, in the sense of like, well, I'm glad you're not going to go forward and beat other people. Because I think she definitely felt guilty about the other woman who he dated.
Sure.
That she was like, why didn't you tell me? But at the same time, like, this chick kind of was slanderous to her. So, you know, what are you going to do? But, you know, so she felt a little bad about that. And so at least now, like, the circle's closed. There's some closure on it.
That's true.
And you can.
She was like, I don't think about you at all, which is the best insult you could possibly give someone.
Yeah. I have one more hate. The Connor threesome that was thrown in the book. Do you remember that? She was talking about her 14-year-old daughter.
Oh, yeah.
That had a threesome. That was so unnecessary. It was a throwaway, too. It was like, I'm trying to set up that this girl's in a bad mental place after her father's death. Okay, this 14-year-old girl has a threesome. It's like, couldn't you just say, like, she started drinking a lot or something? And especially considering her dad was a big drinker, like, that wasn't doing well. And she's, like, obviously depressed. But just to be like, what can I do? Like, oh, okay, the 14-year-old girl has a threesome with two guys from the football team. It's like, ugh.
I think that was probably more to be like, this is what Hollywood does to people type thing if you grow up in it.
I guess so, but they weren't in like a sexual nature type household, you know. And even then, it's like that shouldn't matter. Like, I'm not trying to like shame.
Connor wasn't an actress either, which if she was a child actress, it would make more sense. But she wasn't.
Yeah,
right? So I don't.
Yeah, I
agree.
So yeah, I didn't really care for that. What else you got?
But that last one was just letter sending across coast to coast in the 1980s. I can't imagine that would be the easiest thing to do. Like the way that they reconnect is she sends Celia a letter being like, congrats on your award. Mm-hmm. So she sends that, writes it out, right? It gets like, what, 2 weeks, do you think, probably to get there?
Well, maybe the Pony Express, but letters take like 3 days.
No, back in the 80s?
Well, it's the same thing, right? They have airplanes.
But you write it, right? You write out this long thing, and then you wait 3 days to get there. Let's say it's 3 days. I think it's way longer. And then another 3 days. So you wait a week to get it back. How do you remember what you wrote? Like, there's no text message conversation thread of like, what? She's like, yeah, good point. And you're like, wait, what did I say to her again?
Well,
you know? So I just thought that was funny. But
let me teach you a couple things, Keith. All right? Yeah. I'm going to change your life.
Are you writing on one of those like yellow pads?
Steno pad?
Who saves the receipt? Never saves the receipt.
Get a carbon copy.
Yeah, there we go.
No. But, so she just called Celia. Oh, hey, congratulations. You know, that was great. Whatever the case was. It would have mattered much less. People, and at least the women I know specifically, love letters. Love them. It's
love letters or love letters?
Love
love
both.
Letters
all of the above.
Love
letters.
They love letters.
Love letters.
Okay.
It could be a letter about anything, but sending a letter to someone is a real game changer. You and your girlfriend, you don't live together. You should send her a letter. I'm telling you. Okay. I'm telling you. It will make her week for sure. But what you do is, because I personally have terrible handwriting, obviously this isn't going to get in correspondence situation where then like you don't know what you're talking about. But I always write the letter first on one sheet and then copy it over to another one because there's so many like spelling errors and stuff like that.
I usually write it out on the computer. To be honest with you.
Okay, or do that and just save it. But Keith, promise me you'll write your girlfriend a letter.
All right.
Okay, let's jump into Cast the Movie then. Netflix has announced in March of this year that they were going to release a film adaptation of the book. The rights were originally with Freeform. They were going to do a miniseries that fell through. Netflix picked it up for a full-length feature film. The internet's abuzz. They're not happy. But everyone's talking about the casting now. The release date nor the casting has been shared with the public, so let's start guessing. Who have you decided to cast for this movie?
For Monique, I don't know how big of a role she'll play in the movie, but I did...
Probably substantial.
Journey Smollett? I think she's the brother of Jesse Smollett, who's kind of famous. She's from Have you ever watched all the seasons of Friday Night Lights?
No.
And she's from The Great Debaters.
Her name's Journey?
Jurnee. I just like her.
Oh, I recognize her face. Yes.
Have you ever seen the Great Debaters?
No, just the Master Debaters.
She does the exact same thing in Great Debaters. She's like kind of timid, and I don't know if she's timid, but like she's not sure of herself, and then by the end of it, she's like, all right,
yeah,
let's fucking go. In which I think that's what you need.
Cool. Oh, that's where I recognize her from. Holy smokes. She was in Full House.
Oh, all right. Didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's where I was like, where do I know that face from?
She and what's her name in Friday Night Lights? Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
That series had a lot of great actors.
Talk about Michael B. Jordan, The Wire. Where's Wallace? So I had for Monique, I mean, if we're going to go for it, let's go for it. And although this person might now be royalty, why don't we have Meghan Markle in here? That would create the buzz.
Ooh.
That's the buzz we need.
Yeah.
She was in what, Suits? People love that.
Yeah, great. I love Suits.
People love that. And I think she'd be a good Monique because, of course, she's fucking royalty. Why couldn't she play the part?
That might be the one.
And a big F you to the royal family. Like, I'm getting back into acting with this book adaptation on Netflix. Boom. Oh, you think The Crown's good? Wait till Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo comes out. Queen Elizabeth. Bitch. Did you have Evelyn? I mean, we got to cast Evelyn, right?
Well, it needs to be a young and an old version almost.
Yeah, I think so, although I wasn't really going to cast an old version.
All right, well, I'll just throw Meryl Streep out there because I don't think you can go wrong with her for the old version. This one I don't think is necessarily going to make a lot of sense, but I did some research. So I was looking for someone that's like half Cuban because that has blonde hair.
So you went Ana de Armas.
That was the obvious one because she's literally playing Marilyn Monroe, who I thought it was based off. So I didn't do that because I thought it was cheating.
That's who I picked because that just made sense to me.
So it's cheating. Yeah, it's cheating. Yeah. I did Anya Taylor-Joy. Do you know she's Argentinian? Like she's full Argentinian.
Oh, the girl from
the chess show.
Yeah, and she has a relationship with Netflix.
Yeah, and she's like bright blonde hair, brown eyebrows.
I think she's beautiful for sure and definitely could play the role. Acting-wise, great. She's not a sex pot, though. It has to be a sex pot. They keep saying that line over and over in the book. So I think it has to be like someone that you legitimately like would stop and gape at.
Ana de Armas is the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll just, have to buxom her up. But outside of that, you're good to go.
I like that as a proper usage.
I'm just talking about the character, like it's one of those things that's weird because you're somewhat objectifying these people, but the character, a big part of it is that she's got these giant boobs that people can't stop looking at. I mean, there's been actresses all throughout the ages that's their thing, So you kind of have to. Did you have someone for Celia?
I did. I wasn't really sold on this, but I did Daisy Ridley for Celia. Okay. I didn't really get what her characteristics. I don't think I read into them very well.
Yeah,
so.
That's fair.
What about you?
I had Isla Fisher.
Okay. I feel like she's too spunky.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what she's supposed to be, right? Especially at the beginning when she's like telling her, like taking her out to breakfast or whatever, saying, here's who I want to be. I'm a great actress or whatever. Here's why you're not as good of an actress. So you have to have that spunk. I don't think you necessarily need to be redheaded, but hey, saves $5 on hair dye. And she's obviously beautiful in her own right, which Celia was, so I think that kind of checks out. And would make a beautiful couple with Ana de Armas. Fuck Ben Affleck.
Yeah, I mean,
get up in
there's
here.
Really anyway, you could throw anyone in there. Maybe not me, but like any single person in there, and you make a beautiful couple.
Yeah, I guess you could throw like a blob of gack.
Flubber.
You just continued my thought into Flubber. I didn't cast any of the guys. I wanted to do something for Harry. I didn't have anything. I think him and old Evelyn will probably be like the two biggest other characters, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess maybe Dawn.
Not a role that a lot of people would want to play.
Why not?
Nobody wants to be the bad guy.
No, this isn't Will Smith here. Like, I'll refuse to play a bad guy.
Kid, we already been over this. Acting, I mean, Celia would probably say, oh, you're a wife beater if you're doing that in a movie role. So you wouldn't want that, would you?
That's true. Yeah. She's like, oh my God, I saw this movie and Russell Crowe killed all of these people. It's terrible. Could you believe that? He literally cut a man's head off.
Did you know Greece is still still in the ancient times?
Yeah.
They're still battling over there? I didn't realize it.
There's a war in Sparta going on right now. I saw it in a movie. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I did really like it. I think Daisy Jones and the Six was a better book, but that's just my opinion. I think this would be one you could easily recommend to pretty much anyone, and I think any woman would like this book. So, from the sense of it, I mean, that's just like the sense that I've gotten from everyone that's talked about it. Anyone that's feminine, like me, me and you, D-Man, both feminine. I don't know. Cut that shit. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'd recommend it. I think it was overall a good read. I thought the pace moved well. Like I said before, I read this, most of it during one 14-hour drive across the country. It was a great way to fill the time with other people in the car. When you go to stop for gas or whatever, pause the book and you kind of chat about what happened, this, that, and the other thing, and then you get back into it. You take a couple breaks, listen to some other stuff sometime. But it got to the point where we weren't finished when we reached our destination, and the SGF was I had 4 or 5 hours left. She's like, you're not going to listen to any of this unless I'm with you. Yeah. And I was like, oh. So from there on out, we only had 15-minute car rides, and we're just pretty much getting in the car to read. Yeah, to read the book.
Those are the best books, yeah.
It was really fun to do. But in general, even if you're not on a 14-hour car ride, it's a very good book. I would suggest reading it. Like we said about the writing, it's great. The story's great. The format's great. All of it. Really, really good. It might crack my top 10, but it'd be behind Daisy Jones, which I'm not sure is. So it's, we're into 33-ish, 34-ish books. So that top 10's getting harder and harder to crack.
For sure.
All right, what do we got next?
You already mentioned it, I think. Stephen King, Salem's Lot, written in the 70s. But apparently you said it's going to be made a movie soon?
I mean, the audiobook that we both have says major motion picture or something like that.
Oh, does it? All right, I like it.
Okay, well, I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks for going through this. That was Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Bye now.